Thanks for having us, Larry. A quick interview about the new C300 Mark II that you just introduced. Can you tell us what this camera is all about?
Well, what this camera is all about is a reflection of the countless interviews we had with the users of the first generation C300. This was our entry into the digital cinematography market. As you might imagine, we got a lot of comments. The image quality of the C300 became renowned. Everybody loved it, but you really couldn't make a movie with it because it had very modest onboard recording. Came out with the C500 after that to give you 4K and more serious recording capability, but external recording. But everybody said they wanted a camera with more powerful onboard recording. So this camera was to do that. And it was to give the main impetus for HD and 2K, to give you both of those. You only had HD with the C300, now you have 2K or HD. And to give it to you at 10 bits or 12 bits, to give it to you 422 or 444, and to use a more powerful codec. So we have jumped on the bandwagon of MPEG-4, the AVC. We've labeled it XF-AVC to identify Canon's version. And in there we're recording up around 225 megabits per second compared to the 50 megabits of the C300. So far more powerful onboard recording. And we've decided to put in 4K, but with some limitations, primarily frame rate. The frame rate is limited at 30 frames per second for the 4K. It's 60 frames per second for the 2K HD. So that was the recording side of it. On the imaging side, a totally new image sensor. We were very proud of what we had put into the C300, and it did get acclaim, but we were hearing more about dynamic range, high dynamic range, and anything we could do about raising the ISO or even making the noise lower at the modest ISOs. So that's what we did here. We lowered the noise floor and we increased the saturation. And by the way, we also put in the dual photodiodes that gives us dual pixel autofocus, which I'll talk about in a moment. So now we have a camera that gives 15 stops. We had also been asked, could we do something with ND filters? We had 246 in the C300. We now put in 2 filter wheels here, and the combination can give us 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 stops. So you can shoot in very blinding sunlight and still be able to play a little bit with depth of field, etc. We have an SD card. We use CFast cards for recording. There are 2 of them. And the CFast 2.0, we had to go to that because of the very high writing speeds. But we stayed with that compact flash because we did want a standardized card that's available worldwide. And of course, with volume, will drive the price down as it did with the compact flash. We improved the viewfinder. It's got an OLED viewfinder in it. That's wider color gamut, higher brightness. We've improved the 4-inch LCD, about twice the brightness and about 25% more color gamut. And we reflected the criticisms of those who said, well, you can't really mount many accessories on the C300. We've made a very sturdy handle that's rock solid on it, and it has shoes, 3 levels of shoes, mounting holes underneath. So I think now you can do a much more flexible job in configuration. So that's probably it in a nutshell. Oh, and we do bring out, as well as the onboard recording, we have raw recording. We bring it out on the same format for the 4K as the C500, and that comes out on a 3G SDI. And that's rather nice because we've also introduced a new on-set reference monitor at this NAB, and you can take that raw signal, plug it into this reference monitor, the monitor debares inside, and now you can loop through the monitor into an external recorder while you're watching live 4K on the monitor. So it's a nice systemization. Both that monitor and the new C300 Mark II reflect all of our work with the ACES committee. We've been on the ACES committee. The IDT is built into the camera, and for the ACES proxy, the monitor has the RRT and the ODT for the ACES, so just one cable between the camera and the monitor for on-set color grading in ACES. The monitor, by the way, has a modest HDR capability. Instead of the 100 nits of our 30-inch, this goes up to 400 nits. So you can do a pretty credible grading on set in ACES proxy. color gamut, the camera can switch 4 color gamuts: HD 709, Cinema P3, DCI P3, and now the UHD 2020 that's been standardized for the 4K UHD. And that can be used, all of these color gamuts can be used on HD, 2K or 4K. And then we have our cinema gamut. That's a very wide color gamut for those who might want to use the camera to shoot a movie, a serious movie, but emulate some beloved film stock from Fuji or Kodak, etc. With this color gamut, we encompass all known negative film stocks. So in post-production, we believe we offer the grading for emulating a motion picture film look. Last but not least, the dual pixel offset. This is where we use 2 photodiodes in every photo site, and we do phase comparison, so the detection is done in the imager. And then we have pretty severe processing, and then close a loop around the lens and do autofocus. Unlike the C100 Mark II, where the cursor was fixed in the center, now we have a cursor that can walk around 80% of the area of the image. And you can do an autofocus on that person or this person in the set. Cinematographers don't like autofocus, but cinematographers have a challenge doing manual focus, a beautiful rack focus when it's 4K and they're wide open and they got the shallowest depth of field and they have a viewfinder that's not 4K. So we said, all right, let's take that detection, and instead of closing a loop around the lens, let's use it to signal in the viewfinder. So the DP, the moment he goes to the lens, can look at the viewfinder and he's told there which direction to move. We can tell him which way to go. He doesn't have to hunt. He's told, go forward or go back to focus. And when he now does his beautiful manual focus and gets that sharp focus, the cursor turns green at the instant of, and it's dead accurate. Now we call this focus guide, and we're intrigued to know if the cinematographers will love it or shun it. We think it's good, but we need cinematographers to tell us that. I think that's the highlights of the camera. Did I mention that we record a proxy on an SD card while we're recording in the 2 fast cards?
Just one last observation from me.
Yes.
I think it's very impressive. I mean, the C300 still it looks the same, but it's a very, very different camera. It's a very much higher end camera.
Yes, much higher end.
It's actually higher end than the C500, I think.
Yes.
So
in terms of onboard recording, it's head and shoulders above.
you probably can't tell us, but what's the future for the C500 then?
You can be sure there'll be a future.
Okay.
We have stepped into this business and we're never going to stop.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.